It is another day, a rainy day. We might be driving through some storms today, but we can't get any dirt work done. So today is job shadowing day. We have, what do we have? Next Thursday. A week from this Thursday, the kids go back to school. And Riley has always asked, what do you do for your job, Dad? What do you do for your job, Dad? And I try to explain it to her. Well, today, Riley's with us, and maybe she's in a better mood today than she was in the garden. Huh? That's not very nice. You gonna tell her about hi?
Hi.
Huh. Well, Riley's gonna job shadow me today so that she can learn how I do what I do when it comes to quoting jobs. Unlucky for her, this job is 2.5 hours away, and it is a potential pond repair job that we have got to go review the actual site, get boots on the ground, find out what it's really going to take, and then come back to the office and put some numbers together. You ready?
No.
Let's get it going. We're still on our driveway, and what are you doing?
I'm going back home.
Why?
Because I want to see my grandma.
Your great-grandma.
Yeah.
So you couldn't make your mind up in the house because you were going to paint today. And then you decided you were going to go. And now you're deciding not to go.
Correct.
Oh boy. Maybe we aren't having job shadow day. What are you doing?
I'm going to go home.
All right.
It's a long walk. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, just when you think you're going to have company on 5 hours worth of driving to go quote a job, you lose your company. Oh well. We'll get it done anyway. Well, like I said, I might be driving through some storms today. Not 300 yards from the house. It's already started. Hopefully we hit some clearer skies, but if we don't, we'll be alright. We're in Little Red today. The water can get pretty deep before we have much to worry about. But those trees, if the wind gets crazy and the ground's already saturated, trees across the road, those aren't helpful.
At the next stop sign, turn right.
GPS is talking to us. Anywho, we're on our way in the storm. Sometimes on these job quotes, we get to drive past some really beautiful landmarks, if you will. This is a man-made lake. The name of this lake is Patoka. It is located in Crawford County, Indiana, and that is the marina there you see on the opposite side of the lake. This is actually a reservoir in which the water from my home comes from. It is actually on 2 sides of the road. And I'm sure there's other roads that it's on multiple sides of, but this is a location in which my family and I come to have fun with water sports, and also a place that I come to for some hunting endeavors and fishing. Hunting more so along the lines of waterfowl, those being ducks and geese. And that boat ramp right over there on the other side of that sandbar is actually one of the boat ramps that I utilize. So on that side of the lake over there, there is actually a rather large island, and then also a small island. They set about 200 yards apart. I will, in this video, put a description of Patoka Lake so you guys can see the acreage, etc. It is not a small lake. I'm wanting to say it's like somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 acres. And obviously it's controlled by the the Corps of Engineers in this area. And it gives the locals a place to hang out, have fun, and potentially feed your family. All right, well, we have made it to the quote review. This is an absolutely gorgeous view. There is a second pond right up the hill. There's a windmill right over there between the trees you guys can see turning. That windmill turning actually pumps water out of this pond into the upper pond to ensure it stays with water. And then when it gets to its overflow, it runs back through that pipe right over there and ensures that this pond stays full if natural drainage does not keep both of them full. But this pond has a problem. And it's not a small problem. This is it's gonna be a fun one. This is like literally 2 quote reviews in a row that are just unordinary. And I actually walked a little bit too far past it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you kind of start to see right here on this edge, it kind of changes contour. And if we come down here, you can see where it drops off right there. So this levee, the property owner has recently purchased this property. He did not have this pond built. The previous owner did, and the previous owner did not say anything about a levee problem. And all of these grasses were taller when they came to purchase the property. And lo and behold, this levee is sliding. And when I say sliding, you see these steps. This top step was created, but the bottom step was not. All of that dirt used to be here. So it's a big slide. This crack runs all the way out to about that brown patch right there. And then if we look over the edge, it's actually cracking again right there. And then if you look just inside those rocks, you can see where some rocks are starting to fall down. So there's actually another crack there. The biggest issue currently is it's summertime, but we're scheduled out to 2023. So we can't get to this job. He doesn't want anybody else to do it, but we got to put some numbers behind it. But this winter, this is pretty far north up in Indiana. It's close to Indianapolis, and the frost line around here is 32 inches. So when this moisture gets down in these cracks come fall, and it decides to freeze 32 inches deep, it's going to make these cracks grow. It's going to soften up that dirt, and then come spring when it thaws, it's most likely going to slide again. What I did tell the property owner is if he comes down here right now, let's get back over to this crack here where you can see it really well. Right now, you know, it's 1 finger wide kind of thing. So let's just call it 3/4 of an inch. There's a couple spots that you can get 2 fingers in there, so call it an inch. But if he comes out here this winter and this crack is 4 times that size, 4, 5, 6 inches, he needs to come out here, and he owns that property down there as well, but he needs to come out here and he needs to get some water out of here. We prefer him to not send it through this pipe, because all of this, every bit of this has got to come out. We have to re-core it. We're most likely going to have to replace that new pipe. However, the levee does get fatter here, and where it's sliding, it kind of stops. So we may be able to tie it in up to that pipe without having to go past it. And we won't know that until we go to excavate all this out. But you can see this is a much slower slope here. And that's a steep slope over there. If that crack gets bigger, I've asked him to come down here, put a pump in or a siphon, and siphon it out in that field, which they still own, and try to get the water going that way, instead of the water coming down here and making all this even more wet than it is right now. And the reason for that, if it is really wet there, even if it's summertime, it makes it a lot harder for us to do as good of a repair job as what this is going to need. If you guys look out there in that field, you can kind of see a rolling hump out there that runs almost corner to corner. That is their property. He does say we can get as much dirt as needed out there, He just doesn't want to end up with a great big sinkhole. So we got to play a little bit of a game to ensure that we don't create a spot that holds water. He's trying to grow hay here because they have cows, and he wants to be able to harvest that hay and feed his cows in the winter. But he also understands that we're going to need good dirt after our conversation, that we're going to need dirt, and it's most likely going to come from out there. He has confirmed that he scraped some things off out there and he has found a lot of clay. What it comes down to is there the proper amount of clay. So if you go from here all the way over to that tree, the little tree on the levee, and we take all that out but leave a vertical wall here to then fix that back in and slope it, that is a lot of dirt, a whole lot of dirt. And there is one other set point we have to be careful with at this point. I have asked this property owner if he can share with me the number of the adjoining property owner, because if you look right down there and you see that fence, that's the property line. So realistically, this levee runs to the property line. What would be the best case scenario, since that fence is already down, it's falling in, there's not any fence that I can see in here until way over there. Best case scenario is if we could get permission from that property owner. You can see that's a slow sloping hill and then it steepens up down here. If we get permission from them to kind of kick that levee out and put the back slope into that slope that's running this way, it'll kind of chalk this levee and mitigate any more slide. Now obviously I can't see down here behind that shagbark hickory, which is right there. I don't know if there's a big ditch there, but I can see the base of this shagbark, and here I feel like I'm in the middle of the tree, so that the base of it is significantly down there. But I also have a really great big tree right there. I'm not a tree guy, so I'm not 100% confident what that is, if it's a white oak or not, but it looks to me like this is coming in, and they meet right there, which is not a bad thing. It's a good spot for this runoff to go out of the pond. But if I could chalk this levee up against those hillsides, that would really mitigate a lot of this slide, and that would allow us to go. I'll show you guys this tree. Need to walk over here anyway to step it back off to the corner, give you a view the opposite direction here. It would allow us to come in right in here and start retying in our core. And as you can see, that hillside on the other side kind of starts to flatten off up there by that fence too. So if I can kick all this against that opposing hillside, which is the neighbor's property, it will really allow us to slow any erosion or slides that is happening now. So if you guys look across there, over there's that overflow pipe. All of this is going to have to be replaced. My hope is that we don't have to turn the corner. But there's one other thing I'll show you guys as we step this off together. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I don't have to count for you guys. Right here, which is almost right in line with that pipe, is 50 yards or 150 feet. All of that's got to come out, be replaced with good dirt. What I did explain to the customer is all this dirt that comes out of here, if we don't see any use for it, it can be trucked over there and staged. We'll dig our borrow pit, shove it into the borrow pit so that there isn't a low spot, and try to ensure that the worst case scenario, he ends up with a flat field. Obviously we won't be able to do much over here with this valley, but assuming the good dirt is there, put the bad dirt back in there, put the topsoil back across it, nice flat field. Now let's go look at the other potential negative. Again, this property owner doesn't have a clue as to how the pond was built. He was told who built it. He reached out to them and the guy didn't want anything to do with it. I don't want to come out and repair it. So to me, that tells me this levee probably wasn't built appropriately, because I asked the guy, I said, you know, did you call him and ask for warranty work, or did you call him and ask him what is the price for the repair? And he said, what is the price for the repair? So he's not asking this guy to come out and fix it for warranty. He's asking this guy to just come out and fix it, and the guy says, no, not coming. That tells me the guy didn't build it properly, or he'd be willing to come out and make more money on the same job by putting it back together better, assuming he did it properly the first time. But you guys see these willows here? These willow trees basically say lots of moisture. Well, this is the back slope of this levee. Well, if they say lots of moisture, well, doesn't that mean there's water coming through here? I understand there's water coming off of it, and this is something I want to talk to DP about. But all these grasses down here, and you can see the brown strip runs all the way down there, and you start getting long, spindly, more willows, and he says that stays so wet right there that he really can't mow it or he sinks. So I started asking myself this question: is this a similar situation to some repairs we've done in the past where they shoved dirt up out of that field and they pushed it across current grade to push up a berm that they call a levee, and then they line the inside with some good clay dirt? Some people build ponds that way. We prefer not to, and most of the time we'll tell a customer we don't want to if that's how they want it built. Our preference is, as you guys have seen, all the way from over there where the actual grade of the levee meets natural grade on that hillside, we would have tied a core in all the way up in there to ensure there's no leak path, and it has the most treacherous path. It's got to come over, down, over, up to get out of the core, and that would have ran the entire length of levee all the way back around and tied back in over there. So it would have been a really big, long core. But let's assume that they just pushed it up. So now this water pressure is actually leaking under the levee slowly, and it ends up in this bank, and it ends up down there in that ditch. Is that the ultimate problem? I'm not going to quote this as though we're replacing the entire levee. I am going to quote it as though we are replacing the washout, with the conversation of, if we dig around that corner and we find more problems, we will stop work and we will have a conversation, and we will let you know what we're seeing within that dirt. And if we do need to continue on, we will continue on in phases until we feel comfortable that we've provided an ultimate solution. So with that being said, guys, let's just throw some rough numbers to it. I know we're not in front of the computer or anything like that, but let's assume, again, these are not guaranteed numbers, this is just for conversation piece. Let's assume we're only replacing a washout. Sir, to take that dirt out of there, move it out here, dig a borrow pit, bring it back, place a core in a very short section. Let's say it's not the 150 feet, let's say it's 50 feet. Your price is $10,000. But I will also state, sir, if we start digging down in there and we find more problems, I can't guarantee you that your price is $10,000. So now let's go the bigger picture. We know the washout crack goes a little further and comes over to the corner. We're replacing 150 feet by 30 feet tall by 80 feet wide. Your price is $20,000. Again, this is just rough numbers for you guys. But sir, if we come around this corner, or we get up there on that upper side and we find out we need to go another 100 feet, I'm going to give you a range that says to replace 150 feet, get the dirt, bad dirt out, borrow pit good dirt in, put a core in. I'm going to tell you it's somewhere between 20 and 30. Does that sound okay with you? Yes. Please understand that that 20 to 30 still is not a set price. It's an estimate, because we don't want to leave here if you're capable of doing more work, assuming more cost to provide you a true solution. Those are the types of conversations that I prefer to have with customers, because I do not have a crystal ball. That slip line might be over here, and it runs that 150 feet because I can feel the earth is changing for that 150 feet, plus some footage for a core. What if that slip line goes over there and we dig out this corner to run our core over to here, and we find out that slip line continues around? I don't know if that's the case until we start doing the work. This customer is very understanding of that, and he also understands that the lake was put in probably the hardest corner to repair on this entire property, but this is where he's at. He wants it to hold. He doesn't want it to basically take care of itself and become a dry hole. A, he stocked it. B, they love utilizing this pond for fishing and boating and kayaking and things like that, just outdoor things for his family. He bought this property specifically because it had so many amenities such as that. So now what we got to do, we've got to drive 2.5 hours back home. We've got to get down on the computer in the office. We got to draw this thing out. We've got to make some assumptions on the quantity of dirt we're taking out, the quantity of dirt we're putting back in, throw some numbers to it. We'll show you guys a drawing of that. And then we got to give the guy an estimate. Once we give him an estimate, I have told him already, if he likes our estimate, it's going to be at least May of 2023. We really need it to be dry. We really need it to be a time frame in the year in which we're not expecting a whole lot of rain. May, June, that's typically a pretty good time frame to do this type of work. So this will be a job for next year that DP tackles, assuming this customer likes our price. Let's get back to the office and put some information together. Get you guys some good old diesel sounds and country road driving. But I'm here to tell you, this road is so crazy busy. Let's try that again and hope that we don't lose y'all. Well, we found you guys. You got a little road rash, but we found you. We're not doing that anymore. Nothing's cracked. Everything's a little loose. Definitely got some road rash. Well, hopefully you enjoyed what little bit of back roading I was capable of catching there. We're gonna put you guys back in the truck. All right, well, we are now in front of the computer. The property highlighted here is the actual extremities of the property. If I zoom in here, you guys can actually see where the previous owner, I'm assuming, I don't know when this picture, oh, actually I do, it's from 9/20 of 20 something. Let's see if it'll tell us. I guess realistically it doesn't matter. Some repair work had been done in this area, and if you guys remember just a short bit ago, we actually walked, dang, that sucker's fast today, from somewhere right about in here all the way over to this corner right there, which you can see the little black pipe right there, which is the discharge. So this is that area that we actually need to repair, and this is that property line. Right in this area here, I'm guessing this is basically a 45-degree slope. You guys, you know, as you've seen on the video already, it is steep. My hope is that we can discuss with the adjoining property owner a potential option to kick this back slope out a little bit more. Yes, it's going to cross the property line, but it could also reduce future hazards with as close as this, maybe even call it a lake, was built to this property line. But if I was to highlight this out and basically show you guys where all of the work is going to happen outside of the fact that you've seen it on video already, we will give you some nice pretty lines here so that everybody can see where we plan on fixing and where we plan on utilizing new good dirt. So what I plan to quote is basically, oh my goodness, this sucker, either my mouse is glitchy or something. I plan to quote repairing, basically, I guess I should start on this side, from about right here. We're going to go right on the edge of the riprap, take it to this point. We can probably let it get a little fatter here so we don't have to get as close to the riprap. Bring that new core over into here. Then we would remove all the way to the property line, all the way along the property line in the opposite direction. And that area there is remove and replace with core. That way we know that this thing has got a core in there. The reason I state it that way, everybody, is because over in here, with that being as wet as you guys saw in the video earlier, I'm not sure if there was ever a core put to this thing, and I'd really like to repair that section. Goodness gracious, it's going crazy today. I'd really like to ensure we repair this section with a new core. Some people call it a keyway, some people call it a core. Now, we can get some quick dimensions on this. We do know that we stepped it off, and it's basically 200 feet. And look at that, almost 200 foot on the dot. All right, so we know that that distance is still correct. And then over here, I guesstimated 80. It's 70. So let's get out of that and then come to this fat end here. Can't get the right tool selected here. The fat end, I didn't step this off because it's pretty steep, and really nasty down in there, honestly. So that's 100 feet. So if we go back to the remove and replace and we edit this, we put 200 by 100. This allows us to start putting together the ability to factor what this thing actually ends up being in regards to what to remove. Now, let me get my sketch pad here so I can show you what I mean by that. Let's see if we can do this without messing up the laptop. Yes, I know, guys, the light is behind me. It casts a big old shadow. One of these days I'll get my office set up to where I can do this and we have better light. We'll try to put the camera over here. Actually, that's not going to work because I'm left-handed. So basically what I'm explaining there, guys, is we've got a 200. I'm a horrible drawer. I am not an artist. By 100 rectangle. 200 by 100. Yes, I can easily create a formula for this. However, I'm not worried about that right now for showing you guys what we're trying to do here. We're guesstimating the height of this thing to be 25 feet. So we got 200 by 100 by 25 feet. Now this is a perfect rectangle. Obviously, guys, this thing has a 2-to-1 pitch to it. I'm calling that a 2-to-1 because it is steep. And basically a 2-to-1 means that you've got a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And this is the back slope that, as you guys saw in the video earlier, kind of comes down, and I'll draw a separate picture for that one. And I'll actually bring the camera over here for this. So this is that back slope. I'm guessing it to be a 2-to-1, which is steep. That back slope should look like this, but what it does look like is it comes over, falls off, kind of has some rock in there, and it's really fluffy out here, right? I know that was hard for you guys to see, but what I personally believe, and we'll have to dig down to find out, I believe that slip plane is somewhere down here in that 12 to 14 foot range. As we stated earlier, we've got 25 feet of height. So what that allowed was all of this dirt to go this way, which carried this dirt in this direction, which is why it had kind of a flat spot where all that riprap was sitting. And then it gets all fluffy and jagged out here on this end because, well, it just went, this is where I want to go right now. So instead of digging down to this 12-foot mark and finding that slip plane and stopping, we want to go past that. So when I say we want to put a core in here, you got the flat top to the levee and then the inside slope. When we dig all this out, 200 by 100 by 25 feet, we might not go all the way down to the 25-foot depth, but we do want to come in here and create, as best to our abilities, below that slip plane, a core or a keyway that comes down below that slip plane and ensures water can't come in here, get underneath, and come over, which will create this exact same problem again. Now, since this is a 45-degree slope, we can do some calculations and find out how much tonnage that we're going to move. So basically you take 100 times 200 times 25 feet. That equals, I can't do that in my head, so I'm going to get my calculator open here. 100 times 200 equals times 25 equals 500,000. And then to figure out the amount of tons, you divide that by 21.6. Divided by 21.6. Yes, that's a gravel calculation, everybody. However, this gets us close enough for an estimate. So basically, we are going to move 23,148.15 tons You guys see that there? 23,148.15 tons. Now, you ask, why does that matter? Well, as we use the 210 plus Bubba Dump, we can cycle. What is the cycle, right? Well, the 210 plus Bubba Dump, from first-hand experience on the job, we can typically cycle a load, offload, and return to be reloaded every 6 minutes. Now, you might ask, doesn't that 6 minutes change? Absolutely. This number is basically confirmed by Mike and I both. Mike's a little faster than this, but we don't want to quote this thing at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's just go to a whole number. That is also at a travel distance of basically 200 yards. When I say 200 yards, that 200 yards was a circle, all right? We had our borrow pit here, the excavator set up here, the truck would come in, get loaded, come over, dump, come back around, get loaded again. You guys will see a video on that soon. Very efficient setup. The biggest difference here is we know by our drawing that we have 200 feet just in the levee, which is just shy of 100 yards. Football field's 300 feet. So we can come over here and we can start taking some distances. Again, everybody, this is assuming the longest distance. And yes, we get more efficient the closer we get. But basically, we're going to come to this point, and then we're going to end up all the way. Oh goodness, it's acting crazy again. We're going to end up all the way on this end of the field, because, let's leave that there, so now we know that's 1,267 feet. We'll jot that down, we'll put that in our notes. This field has a interesting lay to it. Oh my goodness, I'm hitting the wrong buttons on you guys, sorry. The interesting lay is there's kind of a spine that runs in this area here, okay? And what we don't want to do when we create, hold on, what is going on? What we don't want to do when we come out here and borrow dirt, you know, some people might ask, well, you're not borrowing it, you're not taking it back. Well, actually, we kind of are. When we come out here and we take off this spine, we don't want to end up with, a hole. So the earth we remove from over here, we stack up over here, and then we take out earth, which is good dirt earth, in here, put it back in the levee, and then we take the bad dirt that slid in the levee and we refill our borrow pit. So the borrow pit gets kind of big and wide sometimes, not so much deep unless the ground allows it. If we create a pit right here and this field ends up holding water, well, that's not a successful job. So we may expand this thing all the way over to here, all the way out to there and around, so that we can create a nice flat area in the field that still allows the water to run off as it's running off today. We don't want to create a third pond, if you will. So we're going to list that as borrow pit. We know for a fact that we are traveling 1,267 feet. If we do that math, 1,267 feet divided by 3, that's 422 yards. What you guys saw earlier, per this math, was basically 200 yards, right? So now we know we're traveling more than 200 yards. It's double and then some. So our 6-minute time frame that we have from hands-on, boots on the ground experience is at minimum going to turn into 12 minutes per load. And to cover the extra 22 feet, call it 23 feet, we're probably going to call this 13 minutes per load. All right, now you start taking 13 minutes per load and having 23,000 tons to move. I have a good guesstimate as to how many tons Bubba Dump will move. I have a good guesstimate as to how many tons the 210 will dig per its timing. I can start to put together a detailed hours on each machine. Now granted, these are estimates. These are not guaranteed numbers. We may come in here and start digging up this bad area and hit some really big boulders. That slows you down. This is why we call it an estimate. And as everyone knows, any contractor in this world is going to estimate slightly on the high side, have a little bit of tolerance, if you will. You don't ever want to get to a job and end up quoting it exact, telling the customer, here's your estimate. You get performing the work and find out, holy crap, instead of taking me an hour to move that dirt, it took me 4 hours. I gotta give this customer a price increase. No, I've got enough data. I can put a good estimate together, but it's always going to be a slight bit on the high side. However, as I've stated before, I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot tell anybody what's underneath the earth. I really don't know if that slip plane is at the 12 to 14 foot mark. All I do know is there is a slip plane. I do know that it is our core competency to put it back together. I have to make a good enough estimate for DP that we can perform this job, be profitable, and provide the customer a true solution. I state that for one very specific reason. If this does not have a core in this area here that has slid, if there is no core there, I am then 99% confident that there is no core here and no core here. Now, there doesn't seem to be any suspect problems here because it seems as though there's more of a hole dug on this side of the pond than levee pushed up like on these two sides of the pond. So while we're here, if we find there is no core, after I give this customer an estimate, they accept that estimate, and we get there and we're working along and we find there is not a core in this, we would recommend while we're on the job site, if the customer wants a true solution which will mitigate future problems, we would keep going around this corner and we would re-core all the way over here to where there is very little height to the levee. And when I say height to the levee, this earth over here, its elevation is similar to the elevation of the actual pond levee. That would then ensure that the core throughout this entire area would be in place. It should then mitigate this moisture problem that he has at the back slope of the shallower pitch. And this core here should help ensure that he doesn't have any slide problems in the future. With all that being said, the only reason why that makes sense to me during this quote phase is because this customer does have a lot of property. So borrow pit wise, we can go find dirt. I'm not 100% confident there's enough good dirt, but we can go dig test holes anywhere out here, find a nice spine in which we can take out, level it up nicely, and end up putting it back nicely so that it looks as though we did minimal effect on the area. If there wasn't this area here and this was the property line, it'd be very difficult to quote this job in today's world with diesel fuel prices the way they fluctuate. The reason I state that is when dirt is on site, it is way, way, way less expensive for us to move it than if we were bringing it in by truckload and then moving it with the exact same equipment that we're shuttling the dirt. So you got to pay for trucking, you got to pay for the diesel, and you got to pay for the dirt. Whereas here, the only thing that the customer will pay for is the time on the machines and the diesel fuel, which is going to be way less costly of bringing dirt into this job site. So that is how we look at this. That is how we perform these pond repair job quotes. This is just kind of a rough rundown of how I look at this on a, I don't want to say generic basis, because there are some very good details to this here. One thing to keep in mind, folks, that I didn't mention earlier, I actually have to divide this number by 2 because this is a rectangle and we're working on a triangle. So basically I factored this math like that. And what I can now do is divide this number by 2, since this is a 45-degree slope, and it might not be exactly, but again, these are for estimates. This is not something that is 100% set in stone. Once I divide that number by 2, I then have the tonnage on this half of the triangle, or I guess realistically it's both halves, but I do need to divide that number by 2 to get the actual amount of tons that we should be removing out of that levee to then be putting back into that levee. Hopefully all that makes sense to you guys. Obviously, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. There are certain things I can answer, certain things I cannot answer. Obviously, we don't want to just tell everybody exactly what our numbers are, because we do want to stay competitive in the marketplace. But as always, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I really hope that you like, comment, and subscribe.